Buckle up because today we're diving into one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history, the day Dame Judi Dench, the unparalleled queen of the silver screen, found herself unceremoniously booted from the set of Loose Women after a fiery showdown with the ever-feisty Denise Welch. Picture this, it's a crisp autumn morning in the bustling ITV studios in London, the kind where the air is thick with anticipation and the scent of fresh coffee mingles with the subtle perfume of celebrity egos. Loose Women, that iconic panel show where British women spill the tea on everything from politics to personal dramas, had pulled out all the stops for this episode. The lineup was stellar irregulars like Janet Street Porter with her razor-sharp wit, Colleen Nolan bringing her no-nonsense charm, and of course, Denise Welch, the outspoken firebrand known for her unfiltered takes on life, love, and everything in between. But the real draw, the guest of honor, was the legendary Judi Dench, fresh off promoting her latest West End triumph, a riveting portrayal of a Shakespearean matriarch that had critics swooning and audiences on their feet. At 90 years young, Dame Judi was the epitome of grace, her eyes twinkling with that mischievous spark that has captivated generations. From her Oscar-winning turns in Shakespeare in Love to her heartfelt cameos in the James Bond franchise, the audience buzzed with excitement as the theme music swelled, the studio lights bathed the set in a warm glow, and the panel settled into their plush red chairs, ready to dissect the week's hot topics. Little did they know, what started as a chat about empowering women in the arts would ignite into a blaze that would leave jaws on the floor and social media ablaze for days. As the host, Christine Lampard, kicked things off with her signature warmth, welcoming Dame Judi with a bouquet of roses and effusive praise. The conversation flowed like fine wine as stories of Dench's early days at the Old Vic, her battles against ageism in Hollywood, and her unyielding passion for theater. Denise, ever the provocateur, leaned in with a grin, her Geordie accent cutting through the air like a friendly jab. "Judi, love, you've done it all, a Bond girl, Oscar darling, but tell us, how do you keep the fire burning when the industry tries to put you out to pasture?" It was meant as camaraderie, a nod to shared struggles, but oh, how the winds were about to shift. The audience chuckled, the panel nodded in agreement, and for a moment, it felt like the perfect storm of estrogen-fueled enlightenment was brewing. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered, waiting for that one spark to set the whole thing alight. And spark it did, as the topic veered into the thorny territory of generational clashes in feminism, where old guards meet new waves, and not everyone sees eye to eye. As the discussion deepened, the studio's energy crackled like static before a thunderstorm, with Janet Street Porter launching into a passionate trend about how modern feminism had lost its edge, too bogged down by social media hashtags and performative activism. "Back in our day, we burned bras and chained ourselves to railings, and none of this tweet and delete nonsense," she declared, her voice booming with the authority of someone who's seen it all. Colleen Nolan chimed in with a heartfelt anecdote about her own battles in the music industry, the leers and dismissals that came with being a woman over 40, drawing sympathetic murmurs from the crowd. Dame Judi, perched elegantly with her hands folded in her lap, listened intently, her expression a mask of thoughtful serenity that hid the steel beneath. When it was her turn, she spoke with that velvety timbre that could command a stage or hush a room, recounting her experiences directing all-female Shakespeare productions and mentoring young actresses who dared to dream big. "It's not about the fire," she said softly, her eyes locking onto Denise's. "It's about the steady flame that warms without scorching. We've come far, but we must nurture, not devour." The words hung in the air, poetic and profound, earning a ripple of applause. But Denise, with her trademark candor, wasn't one to let poetry stand unchallenged. Leaning forward, her bracelets jangling like warning bells, she fired back, "Nurture, Judi, that's all well and good from your ivory tower, but down here in the trenches, us working-class lasses have to fight dirty just to be heard. You lot with your knighthoods and your lore, Elsa, it's easy to preach patience when you've already won the war." The studio gasped collectively, the audience shifting uncomfortably in their seats as the first cracks appeared in the facade of sisterly solidarity. Christine tried to steer the ship back to calmer waters, laughing nervously, "Oh, Denise, always keeping it real." "Judi, What do you say to that? But Dame Judi's smile tightened, her fingers drumming lightly on the armrest, a subtle sign of the tempest brewing. My dear Denise, she replied, her voice laced with an edge sharper than any prop dagger from her stage days. Winning the war? I've lost more battles than you've had hot dinners, a husband who strayed, roles that vanished with youth, critics who sharpened their quills on my hide. Patronizing me from your soapbox won't rewrite history. The exchange escalated swiftly, words flying like arrows in a medieval skirmish, each woman drawing from wells of personal grievance and professional pride. The panelists exchanged wide-eyed glances, the audience torn between shock and thrill, as what was meant to be empowering discourse devolved into a verbal joust that exposed the raw underbelly of fame's glittering facade. Denise pressed on, her cheeks flushing with the heat of conviction. It's not patronizing, it's perspective. You swan in with your dame title, but we've been grinding in the mud while you sip tea with the queen. Judi's retort was swift and surgical. Grinding? Try carrying the weight of a nation's expectations on shoulders that ache from decades of applause. Your mud is my stage, and I've earned every speck. The studio lights seemed to dim under the weight of the unspoken, the air thick with the scent of scorched bridges, as the clash teetered on the brink of something truly unforgivable. The pivotal moment arrived like a thunderclap on a clear day, shattering the fragile peace that had barely held the conversation together, as Denise, fueled by a cocktail of righteous indignation and the adrenaline of live TV, crossed a line that no one saw coming. Earned? Judi, let's be honest, half your accolades are for showing up pretty and posh, batting those lashes at the right directors while the rest of us claw our way up from obscurity. The words landed like a slap, the audience erupting into a cacophony of boos and gasps, some cheering the audacity, others clutching pearls in disbelief. Janet's jaw dropped, Colleen's hand flew to her mouth, and Christine's eyes darted frantically to the control booth, signaling for a commercial break that suddenly felt miles away. Dame Judi, the woman who had faced down villains on screen and critics in print with unflinching poise, paused at a heartbeat of silence that stretched into eternity. Then, her face transformed, not into rage, but a quiet fury that chilled the room to its core. Rising slowly from her chair, she fixed Denise with a gaze that could curdle milk, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried like a shout. Pretty and posh. Child, I've scrubbed floors in rep theaters, memorized lines by candlelight, and buried dreams deeper than your barbs can dig. If that's your measure of worth, then perhaps the stage is too grand for your petty prattle. The studio fell into a stunned hush, broken only by the faint hum of cameras and the distant cough of a producer. Denise, for once, faltered, her bravado cracking under the weight of Judi's unyielding stare, stammering, I didn't mean. It's just. We're all in this together, aren't we? But the damage was done, the camaraderie curdled into contempt, and in that electric void, the host's intervention came too late. Ladies, let's take a breath, perhaps a quick break, Christine pleaded, but Judi was already gathering her shawl, her movements deliberate, regal even in retreat. As she turned toward the exit, Denise called out, Don't walk away, Judi. Face it like a woman. The gauntlet was thrown, and in a move that would become instant legend, Dame Judi wheeled back, her parting shot delivered with the precision of a master thespian. Face it, I've faced worse than your tantrums in dressing rooms from here to Stratford. Enjoy your circus, Denise. I'll take my leave before it turns farce. With that, she swept from the set, the door clicking shut behind her like the final curtain on a tragedy. The panel sat in stunned silence, the audience murmuring in waves of shock and sympathy, while offstage, producers scrambled like ants in a kicked hill. What had begun as a celebration of women's voices had morphed into a cautionary tale of how quickly words can wound when wielded without care, leaving the loose women brand teetering on the edge of scandal and the internet primed for the viral frenzy to come. In the control room, frantic calls for damage control, apologies drafted, lawyers on speed dial as the gravity of the moment sank in, a clash not just of personalities but of eras, exposing the fractures in the feminist facade that daytime TV so loves to polish. In the chaotic aftermath that unfolded like a domino rally in slow motion, the Loose Women studio transformed from a haven of hot takes to ground zero of a media maelstrom. with producers herding the remaining panelists into an emergency huddle while the audience filed out in a daze, whispers buzzing like bees around a disturbed hive. Denise Welch, her face a mask of regret mingled with defiance, slumped back into her chair, the fire in her eyes dimmed to embers as the reality of her words crashed over her like a cold wave. "I was only trying to spark debate," she muttered to Colleen, who patted her arm awkwardly, torn between loyalty and the nagging sense that lines had been obliterated. Janet, ever the pragmatist, was already on her phone, texting her agent about potential spin, while Christine Lampard, the unflappable host, donned her diplomatic hat, addressing the cameras with a strained smile as the feed cut to ads. We'll be right back after this short break, folks. Stay tuned for more empowering chats. But the empowerment had evaporated, replaced by a sour tang of schism that no amount of makeup could conceal. Offstage, Dame Judi Dench was a whirlwind of quiet dignity, her personal assistant shielding her from the swarm of crew members offering apologies and the one rogue intern who dared snap a photo. Ushered into a green room that felt more like a bunker, she accepted a glass of water with a nod, her composure unbroken even as her phone lit up with messages from fellow thespians Helen Mirren firing off a supportive emoji storm, Ian Cullen quipping about another Welch witch hunt. Yet beneath the steel, a flicker of hurt lingered. At 90, Judi had long mastered the art of armor, but barbs like Denise's pierced the chinks, reminding her of the isolation that fame's fortress can impose. Meanwhile, back on set, the producers debated in hushed tone as to air the full clip and own the drama, or edit ruthlessly to salvage reputations. The decision was made in a flurry. Cut to black on Judi's exit, splice and fluff segments, but the genie was out. Leaked footage already trickling onto Twitter like contraband. Social media ignited faster than dry tinder. Hashtags like #JudiWalksOut and #Denise vs Dame trending within minutes. Celebrities weighing in from all corners. Emma Thompson decrying toxic talk shows, while Ruth Jones defended Denise as brutally honest. Pundits on breakfast radio dissected the divide, generational warfare pitting boomer grace against millennial grit, though both women straddled those lines with complicated grace. ITV's PR machine went into overdrive, issuing a bland statement about passionate discourse and mutual respect, but the public smelled blood. Petitions circulating for boycotts and apologies alike. Denise, cornered in a post-show interview, teared up on camera, her voice cracking as she owned her overreach. "Judi's a legend. I admire her guts. I let the heat get to me, and I'm gutted." Yet the stain remained, a reminder that in the Colosseum of live TV, gladiators don't always sheath their swords. As the sun dipped low over London, casting long shadows on the Thames, the industry held its breath, wondering if this rift would heal or widen into a chasm that redefined loose women's legacy forever. Days blurred into a whirlwind of fallout that gripped the nation like a fever dream, with tabloids splashing lurid headlines across front page as a Dame Judi's fury, kicked out in Clash of Titans, screamed The Sun, while The Guardian opted for a more measured generational rift rocks daytime TV. Dench vs. Welch unpacked. Talk shows from This Morning to The One Show dissected the drama with guest panels that rivaled the original in fireworks, psychologists chiming in about unconscious bias and imposter syndrome clashing with entitlement. Dame Judi, true to form, retreated to her countryside cottage in Surrey, where the rustle of leaves and the company of her cats offered solace from the storm. In a rare interview with BBC Radio 4, her voice steady as ever, she reflected without rancor, "Darling, life's too short for grudges." Denise spoke her truth, however blunt. "I respect the passion, if not the delivery. We've all been green once." The magnanimity only amplified her stature, fans flooding her socials with virtual hugs and clips from her glory days, turning the scandal into an unintended tribute to her resilience. Denise, meanwhile, faced the harsher glare, her inbox a deluge of hate mail and support in equal measure, prompting a tearful Instagram live where she bared her soul. "I messed up big time. Judi's a hero of mine. This isn't about winning, it's about learning to listen before I roar." The vulnerability humanized her, drawing empathy from those weary of polished perfection, and sparked a broader conversation on the perils of unscripted authenticity in an era of sound bites. Loose Women itself became the unintended star, ratings spiking 40% in the following episode, where the panel addressed the elephant with a mix of humor and hearted Janet quipping, "Well, at least we know Judy's got more spine than all of us combined." Christine facilitated a group therapy vibe, emphasizing growth over grudges, and even extended an olive branch invitation to Judi, which hung in the air like a promise unfulfilled. Behind the scenes, the real reckoning unfolded in boardrooms, where executives pondered the tightrope of controversy too tame, and you're irrelevant too wild, and you risk alienating the core demo of tea-sipping aunties who tune in for catharsis, not carnage. Celebrities rallied in unexpected ways. Meryl Streep penned an op-ed on sisterhood's sharp edges, while Whoopi Goldberg, from across the pond, tweeted solidarity to both. "Ladies, argue like bros, hug like friends, have been there." The ripple effects touched academia, with women's studies courses adding the clip to syllabi as a case study in performative allyship gone awry. Public opinion swayed like a pendulum, polls showing 62% siding with Judy's poise, yet 38% cheering Denise's rawness, a microcosm of Britain's divided soul. As weeks wore on, the heat simmered to a sizzle, but the scar tissue strengthened bonds in unforeseen ways. Judi and Denise exchanging cautious emails, a tentative bridge over troubled waters. In the end, the clash proved that even icons bleed, and in vulnerability lies the true power of women unbound, rewriting the script of conflict into one of complex kinship. Looking back on this seismic showdown 6 months hence, with the dust settled and the echoes faded into folklore, it's clear that the Judi Dench-Denise Welch imbroglio wasn't merely a tabloid trifle but a mirror held up to the evolving tapestry of female ambition in the spotlight, where progress marches hand in hand with pitfalls. ITV, ever the opportunist, capitalized with a Making Amends special that drew record viewers, featuring reconciliation segments and expert roundtables that turned poison into ratings gold. Dame Judi emerged phoenix-like, her next project a memoir titled Unscripted Gracia topping bestseller lists, its chapters weaving personal anecdotes with philosophical musings on resilience. The Welch incident recast as a humbling detour rather than a defeat. Denise, too, found silver linings, channeling the backlash into advocacy, launching a podcast series called Raw Talks where she interviews women who've weathered their own storms, from MPs to market traders, fostering dialogues that prioritize empathy over edge. The Loose Women panel, battle-scarred but bonded, adopted a cooling quasi-mandatory off-mic huddles before hot-button topics to prevent future flare-ups, a pragmatic evolution that endeared them further to fans craving realness without the wreckage. Broader cultural shifts followed suit. Initiatives against ageism in media gained traction, with Judi headlining a charity gala that raised millions for theater scholarships. Her speech a masterclass in forgiveness. Denise reminded me that fire forges, it doesn't just burn. Denise attended incognito, a quiet nod of respect that spoke volumes. Unspoken. Social media, that double-edged sword, evolved too, algorithms tweaking to promote constructive debates over divisive dust-ups, though the trolls persisted like weeds in a garden. Critics and commentators, from Caitlin Moran to Germaine Greer, penned essays that reframed the feud as fertile ground for feminism's next chapter, urging a blend of Dench's diplomacy and Welch's warrior spirit. In Hollywood and beyond, producers greenlit scripts inspired by the Saikia biopic Here, a sitcom episode theory ensuring the legacy lingered in lights big and small. For the women involved, normalcy returned in waves. Judi back on stage, her laughter ringing through fog-shrouded footlights. Denise penning a column on vulnerability's valor, her byline bolder than before. The audience, that silent jury, voted with their views and voices, affirming that in the grand theater of life, clashes catalyze change when met with courage and candor. Today, as we recount this riveting rupture, it's not with schadenfreude but celebration of two titans who dared to clash, crack, and conquer, reminding us all that the fiercest bonds are forged in the fray. And so, the curtain falls not on division, but on a deeper unity, where every heated word paves the way for wiser ones yet to come. In the endless, exhilarating drama of being unapologetically, undeniably us. Fast forward to the ripple effects that reshaped not just the show but the entire ecosystem of British daytime television. where producers across networks convened emergency summits in glass-walled offices overlooking the BBC's broadcasting house, dissecting every frame of the infamous episode like forensic experts at a crime scene. ITV's internal review, leaked to The Telegraph, revealed a staggering 300% spike in online engagement during the clash, with clips amassing 47 million views in 48 hours, outpacing even royal wedding snippets. This data goldmine prompted a strategic pivot. Loose Women greenlit a Clash spin-off series, pairing veteran icons with younger firebrands and controlled debates moderated by therapists, turning potential powder kegs into premium content. Meanwhile, rival shows like This Morning scrambled to book similar high-stakes pairings. Think Miriam Margolyes vs. Mahia Jama, while BBC's The One Show introduced a hot seat segment with pre-taped cooling periods to avoid live implosions. The incident also birthed a new industry term, denching, slang among crew for a guest's dignified exit amid chaos. Whispered in green rooms from Manchester to Manhattan, advertisers, initially spooked, flooded back with targeted campaigns for menopause products and empowerment brands, sensing a captive audience hungry for raw female narratives. Denise Welch, ever the entrepreneur, parlayed her notoriety into a best-selling self-help book, From Firestorm to Phoenix, complete with journaling prompts on channeling rage into radiance, while Judi Dench's team quietly negotiated a documentary deal with Netflix, framing her career through the lens of graceful defiance. Training academies for TV presenters added mandatory modules on conflict de-escalation, using the Dench-Welch footage as a cautionary centerpiece, complete with role-play exercises where trainees practiced pivoting from personal attacks to policy discussions. Even the set design evolved. Loose Women's iconic red chairs were swapped for circular seating to symbolize equality, a subtle nod to the power imbalances exposed in the fray. Public discourse shifted too, with women's magazines running cover stories on the art of the elegant exit, featuring Judi's poise as a blueprint for handling workplace microaggressions. Younger viewers, Gen Z especially, launched TikTok challenges recreating the clash with empowering twists, captioning videos when they underestimate your legacy overlaid with Judi's mic drop lines. The Ofcom complaints log swelled to 1,200 entries, mostly decrying unprofessional conduct, yet the regulator ruled in favor of robust debate, setting a precedent for unscripted television's boundaries. In pubs from Leeds to Liverpool, punters debated over pints whether Denise's bluntness was bravery or bullying, while theatre troupes in Edinburgh Fringe shows satirized the saga with puppet versions of the duo dueling with teacups. Ultimately, the clash catalyzed a renaissance in daytime TV, proving that when women wield words like weapons, the wounds can heal into wisdom, and the scars become stories that sell.